Hey everybody, this is the Anyway Whatever podcast, and I am your host, Mike Fisher. Today's guest is Piper Ferguson, and Piper has worn a lot of different hats in the creative industry over the years, as you will hear. But she's most known for her rock photography, appearing in magazines like Rolling Stone and Swindle, and a bunch of other big name publications. She's very well established, and this was a really good episode. In the end, I was very pleased with all the things we covered, and we went through a wide range of different topics and subjects, and we talked business, and we talked accomplishments, and it was a really good time, and I'm hoping Piper comes back again very soon, because she was a great guest, and I think you guys will all agree with that. So anyway, as always, share this podcast if you like what you hear. Anything, any extra ears we can get by people, recommending it to their friends, and, giving us good reviews on all the podcasting sites. If you're on Apple, iTunes, or Google, or wherever it is you get your podcast content, please give us a 5-star review and subscribe to the podcast, because that stuff is super helpful. And, I like making this show, and I want to keep doing it, keep bringing you guys cool and interesting guests to listen to. So follow us on all the different social media at Anyway Whatever Podcast, Instagram, Facebook, etc. And yeah, enjoy this episode with Piper. It's a really good one. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is photographer Piper Ferguson. Not just a photographer. Piper does a lot of stuff. We're going to talk about all the different things that Piper does. She fits really well in with the theme of the show of people who do all sorts of creative things, and that's why she's here, because she's got her irons in all kinds of fires all the time. Hi, Piper.
Hi, Mike.
How are you?
I'm doing good today, as good as we can be. Feeling very grateful.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of got to at this point.
Yeah.
Like always, I always want my people to get their social media plugs in the front, so anybody who doesn't listen all the way through the end credits doesn't miss anything. Where can people find you online?
So it's just my name pretty much on anything you're looking for. My website's piperferguson.com. My Instagram is Instagram/Piper Ferguson, all one word. Facebook's the same thing. And what else is there? I don't do I don't do Snapchat or whatever the other new ones are.
TikTok
but LinkedIn, Piper Ferguson. It's pretty much just my name on everything. I got lucky there. I started early.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like I suffer from having the same name as a really super famous professional ice hockey player. So
I saw that.
I can't even Google my name. You get 20 pages of that guy before you ever get anywhere near me. It's annoying.
I did get a Google alert this morning for a fourth grader who's got on the honor roll named Piper Ferguson.
There you go.
And I was like, oh, cool. I'm doing good in school.
Keeping the smart lady's name in the record, folks.
Yeah.
So I know Piper primarily through my wife, and it's one of those things when my wife and Piper are very, very good friends. And when you're dating someone new, one of the things that one of the gauntlets you have to go through is everybody has to go through their new person's friend safety gates. And so one of the first times that me and Piper actually hung out was she was shooting Motorhead at some show in Los Angeles, and she got tickets for me, and me and Chrissy had just started dating at the time. And so I got to hang out with Piper and when she was doing like a thing with Motorhead, and that was super cool. And, and it was like, we got a pretty decent initial connection, I think, out of that.
Yeah, that was really fun. I'm happy that I've gotten to spend quite a few times and shows with Lemmy in my life.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's a legend. He's one of those people that comes up on the show from like all different parts of the spectrum. You know, from a photographer like you to like my super gnarly heavy metal friends. Like Lemmy is like he crosses all the boundaries and genres.
I know that Dave Grohl's such a big fan of Motorhead, and I did that night get a really good picture. Oh, no, not that night. I was at the beauty bar, and Lemmy and Dave Grohl were there at the same time. I have no idea if they were there together, but I did get a really amazing picture of the both of them that I can maybe send to you.
Oh, that would be fantastic. That would be super awesome. Yeah, I know that you do a lot of photography for the music industry, and you've done some magazine work and stuff like that. I know you had stuff in Mojo magazine and Rolling Stone and stuff like that. How did you kind of find your way towards that?
Okay. Well, so yeah, I remember it was probably like 1999 or something, and Rolling Stone called me and they said, "Oh, Jessica Simpson just started dating Nick Lachey and we need somebody to take a photo." And I was really sick in bed, and I was like, finally I'm in bed. I have a fever. Nothing is getting me up. And then when they called me, it was the first time they'd ever called me. I was like, oh my God, Rolling Stone, I got to get up. And I ran to Santa Monica to take pictures of these people that I didn't even know who they were, nor did I really care that much. But it was exciting to get to photograph somebody for Rolling Stone. And then Mojo magazine in the UK, which I love. I mean, I love Rolling Stone too, but I love Mojo. Such a it's like an iconic magazine for mostly classic music, but they do cover a lot of new music as well. They called Rolling Stone and asked them if they knew any photographers in LA, and for whatever reason, Rolling Stone recommended me. So I started shooting for Mojo back then. I don't remember what the first shoot was, but I mean, just right before the pandemic, I photographed Michael Kiwanuka for them, who is amazing. And I mean, I've photographed over 20 years for them now. Everybody from Tom Petty to Carlos Santana to John Mayall Blues Band to, man, I've been Iron and Wine. I've been all over the country shooting stuff. Jacob Dylan for those guys. Trying to think of other classic people. But yeah, so that's been an amazing gig that I've cherished in my career.
Yeah, that's
music nerd.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's super amazing to get opportunities to work with people whose music that you actually like. I know that's a thing for me with the merchandise design that I do. There's stuff that I do for bands that I don't know or care that much about, and there's stuff I do for bands that I really like, and that's always super rewarding for creative people like us who are working in the music industry.
I did have a really cool, this is like my major nerd out music photography experience, is when I was little. I mean, I was pretty little when Billy Idol came on MTV, and I had just gotten MTV. I was obsessed with Billy Idol and Generation X. And my friend, when we were in 8th grade, my friend's dad drove us to the Cow Palace in South Bay area. Bought us tickets to go see Billy Idol. We went to go see him. We were so excited. It was a punk rock show. I mean, I was in 8th grade, so it's not as easy to find out about stuff like that then as it is now.
Right.
And somebody threw a shoe at his face and he walked off stage, and I started to cry. I was like, no, Billy. And then I remember just thinking in my mind, one day, Billy, one day. And then Shepard Fairey's magazine, Swindle. I did do a lot of work for Swindle magazine with Roger Gassman and Shepard. And they called me and asked me to photograph Billy Idol and Steve Jones on my birthday, which was October 5th. And I was like, I knew this day was going to come. I manifested it when I was in 8th grade, which Billy was like hugging me and all over me at the time, and I was beet red, sweating profusely, and I couldn't stop laughing because it was just the most exciting moment.
Did you tell him that story?
Well, I brought him a picture of me I was wearing my 8th grade graduation dress, and I'm sitting at my desk in front of a wall of Billy Idol posters, and I brought it to him and showed it to him, and he just grabbed it and signed it and kind of handed it back to me, and I was like, thanks.
You were like, that wasn't the point really, but thank you anyway, I guess.
Yeah, but okay, cool. Now it's signed. Great. But yeah, that was I don't even know why I mentioned that because because it's a great story. Experience. That was one of my favorite editorial shooting experience ever.
That's amazing. That's awesome. It's like a total random aside. I was driving somewhere, on like a little grocery run the other day, and I don't normally get out very much, but during this whole pandemic thing, I get out even less. So I was just like cherishing the fact that I had somewhere to drive. It was like 4 miles in each direction. I was still excited about it. But White Wedding came on and I was listening to it and I was sitting there thinking about Billy Idol. And it's funny that you mentioned that because it's just like a weird thing that just happened to me like 2 days ago. And I was sitting there like mindlessly at a red light and I was like, I remember I liked Generation X before Billy Idol became a solo thing. And I remember being so mad that he like sold out. And then the thing is that's funny is that when I listen to Generation X songs now and Billy Idol songs now, there's like 1% difference. You know what I mean? It was like, he didn't really change much of anything to make that switch over. So it was like, it's just that whole thing about being young and just being like, incredulous when your heroes do things you don't agree with. And then in the end, it is like not really anything at all.
But I will say the Billy Idol that was on MTV and when I would put my Generation X records on, they really took me to a different place.
Sure.
I don't know. That's what I loved about things being so difficult to find. Like when Genesis P. Orridge passed away recently from Psychic TV and Throbbing Gristle, when I was in high school, I had my boombox in my window and with the coat hanger trying to get Cal-X in Berkeley, and I would have a cassette tape in it and I would record all the songs. And one of the songs was God Star by Psychic TV, and I had no idea who it was by. But I listened to it all the time, and then eventually I realized who it was by. And that song was like Generation X. It really just takes you to this, I don't know what the place is or where it is or what it means, but it's just another world. And that's what I love about music so much. And that's why I'm so grateful that I've gotten to be around so much of it in my life. I mean, I put myself in that position, but it went so much further than I could have ever imagined.
That is like almost literally my same story. Like I would, I think I mentioned it when I was talking to another. I did a movie review. I talked about the new Beastie Boys movie with my brother-in-law because we're both huge fans, and we kind of went over this a little bit. But yeah, I was also in the Bay Area, but I was on the other side, and so the closest radio station to me that played anything cool was the KFJC in Los Altos Hills, and it was like Foothill Junior College. And like every Thursday from like 10 to like, I guess it was like 8 to midnight, it was just 4 hours of like punk rock music. And every single week, like my parents would buy me like cases of cassettes from Costco, and I would just record every single week. And I'd label them all out with every single song that was on there. And I just had stacks of these tapes with all my favorite bands on them. And I did the same thing. I inserted myself into the music business in the same way because I just didn't ever really want to do anything else.
Yeah.
And I kind of started by, whatever bands were coming through either San Jose or up the peninsula, I learned how to silkscreen, and I would make like these bootleg shirts for whatever band was playing. And I'd go to the show and I would sell them out front and then get enough money to get in. And then I would go around the back and I would either give the band any extra money or I would give them whatever shirts I had left for them to sell to make money on. So that
my God,
always had a way to get into shows, and I got to meet a lot of bands that way. And that's kind of how I built my art career in the music business, was learned how to silkscreen. I started making merch on my own, so like, I totally get where you're at with that. And it's like, I never wanted to do anything else but work with bands in an artistic sense. And I had to make video games for a while, and I had to be a repo man for a little while, but was like I always did my music stuff on music merchandising stuff on the side. And then it was really 10 years ago, like right around the time that we met was when I quit my day job and started doing it full time. And
yeah, it's so noble of you to make the shirts and, go backstage and hand over some of the cash to the band, or all the cash.
I just
you
needed
probably
enough
covered
to
your
get
expenses.
in. Man, I just needed enough to get in. All I cared about was
give them the shirts back. That's so sweet. If more people were of service like that, that's beautiful.
All I cared about was having enough money to get into the shows, because I wanted to go to every single show I could. And I was always the first person. Like, I wanted to see every single band, the opening band, and I want to be there till the last band played. So that was just so into it,
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I will admit I moved to LA because I wanted to be in the film business more than I wanted to do anything around music, even though I was a big music person and fan. I was going to San Francisco State, and my friend Dave, he was from the Bay Area as well, and he called me and said, "Oh, I'm living in LA and I'm working on a movie." And I was like, "No way, you're not working on a movie." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, Stephen Baldwin's in it." And I was like, God, that's so crazy. I don't know anybody that's ever worked on a movie before. And so I had a boyfriend go to Art Center, and he's like, "Just move down here." So I went down to LA and got my first job through the Hollywood Reporter, faxed him a resume. And I heard from a friend that I ran into that worked at that company, they weren't going to hire me because I was a woman. And I called her and said, oh no, I faxed her a letter, fax, so funny, and said, I heard you're not going to hire me because I'm a woman, and I can do any job a man can do, only better. So they hired me. I did screw up a lot, but from there I worked in film and art department, and then I had a best friend. Yeah.
I did not know you did art department. I did it a little bit too.
Oh yeah. I did a lot of let's just say I started out in rap videos, and then I moved into soft porn. So
well, I mean, it's the same thing, really.
Yeah. You just have this. We had our rap kit. It was like the briefcase of money, and then all the chains, and then the fake champagne called Don Pigeon instead of Dom Perignon, and all the glasses. It's always the same art kit. And the same thing, I guess, with soft porn Playboy channel. There was another channel, I can't remember the name of it. So that was a lot of fun. And then my best friend moved here, and she was like, let's start a club. I mean, I totally Forrest Gumped my way into everything. I do not know how it happened.
Again, I can relate to that totally. I want to talk about your club in a minute. There's still a little bit more of this movie and music business stuff that I want to cover first. Right before the pandemic lockdown, in the months leading up, I had started doing a lot of graphic design for movies and commercials. And like last year, I had I did some prop 12-pack beer boxes for the Andy Samberg movie, Palm Springs. And I worked on some Frosted Flakes commercials and stuff. And I'd just gotten in with like an art director, and I was going to start, because I'm trying to transition to doing that, like graphic design work for productions, because I can work so fast and it's easy, and I love it. I love doing that kind of thing, because I am also like a total film nerd. And I was either going to go to animation school, which I did, or I was going to move to LA and try to get into special effects and films, just like you. And so,
wow, funny.
And so I did a little art department, like set dressing and stuff about 10 years ago. And it was hard work for a 40-year-old man to move furniture all day. God, yeah. And a little bit of a hard time getting into the union and stuff, which everybody in LA who comes here to get in the film business has to kind of, that's a thing that you don't know about, that you have to learn how to get in there. But yeah, it was like, I was just making some headway right before all this lockdown happened, and I did not know you'd done art department. That's super cool.
Yeah, I did movies. I did a couple films too. And then I, you know, I got asked to be a music video director's rep, like right in the middle of a film, and the production designer wasn't being very nice to me. So I was like, you know what? Goodbye. I'm going to go represent music video directors. So my first job was repping like Dean Carr and Floria Sigismondi and all these and this guy, I can't remember his name. He did a bunch of Nine Inch Nails videos. So it was a really cool company, but that was also really challenging because I didn't even know what a rep was when I started that job. I think they just thought I looked cool.
Well, you did. I've seen pictures of you when you were younger, and not that you don't look cool now, because you definitely do. But yeah, you had style coming out of your ears when you were
patent leather hats and stuff.
Totally. And as I understand, you have been working on a documentary lately, like producing, directing a documentary recently.
Well, yeah, that's really kind of complicated.
Is there a short version?
Yeah, I'm like, should I even talk about this? I guess so, yeah, because I think I saw it on IMDb, so I can probably talk about it. But yeah, so I was filming. I've done tons of photography for Levi's in the past, where, you know how at maybe you don't know, but at South by Southwest, there's this big Levi's Fader magazine fort compound. But I did the first one with them in 2002, and it was in a hotel room. Now, it was very small, but I got to photograph all these great bands like Elbow and Star Sailor, Ed Harcourt. I mean, these were all bands I loved. And that just evolved with all the South Bys, Winter Music Conference, Video Music Awards, and we would set up and shoot tons of bands in Levi's all day. And then at one point during the VMAs, Levi's and Fader wanted to do this and a VMA party. And it was with the Strokes, and Mos Def played, and they were like, we're going to give you like all this money to bring a crew out to film what's happening in New York after 9/11, and you know, all these bands were breaking. And so I started doing this film. It didn't go as well as I wanted it to, but I just kept chipping away at it. It goes into a long story about how I want to do the film, more about my experience with trying to tell a story that I was told I should tell, and I didn't know why I was telling it really. So in the meantime, recently, a girl wrote a book called Meet Me in the Bathroom. Her name's Lizzie Gman. It's an amazing book. It's very long. I've been reading it. And they're making a doc about Meet Me in the Bathroom with the Strokes, Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Interpol, LCD Sound System. So I've been sending them a bunch of footage for their film because I realized my film is not going to be about the New York indie rock explosion. That was what I was trying to do, but it just didn't feel like a story that I felt compelled to tell. So even though I was kind of a part of it in a weird way, on the periphery. So I've been helping them by just uploading tons of footage. Hopefully I'll get some kind of decent credit on that. And also, a big part of my story is Stuart Lupton from Jonathan Fire Eater. I don't know if you remember that band.
I do not.
Amazing indie band. So they are also, Stuart passed away. Somebody's doing a doc on him. They're now asking me for footage. So I'm kind of in the middle of 3 docs. The Meet Me in the Bathroom, someone's doing a doc on Stuart, the story I want to tell, and trying to navigate all that is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, the South by thing, that South by keeps coming up. I'm talking to so many different people, and South by keeps coming up as a recurring theme. And I used to do South by Southwest Festival as part of the Flatstock poster show, where they just
we did that at Levi's once.
I got a couple pair of pants out of that.
Well, I was there upstairs doing photos. I wish I would have taken your picture.
Yeah, one year we all got Converse shoes from Converse,
Yeah.
and one year we all got Levi's stuff from Levi's. I remember that.
Oh, that's so crazy. Yeah, I have tons of pictures of that. I might even have you into the
It's
photos.
possible. I don't remember if I was photographed for my thing with the rock poster thing was I did posters for like death metal bands, and so nobody cared about that. Nobody cared about that at all. I was like the one guy who was doing death metal posters, so I was like kind of in the corner by myself, and at the time I was a very introverted person, and I wasn't like out trying to like I was very likely I actively avoided trying to be in front of a camera or something like that.
Yeah, I can relate. But yeah, those were really good times.
Yeah, I always loved South by Southwest, and it's funny. I had another guy on who's a singer in a band who was a Texas. He was an Austin local at the time when South by started, and he has a totally different view of South by Southwest and how it affected the city of Austin. If I had to sit down and figure out where most of my friends live that don't live in Los Angeles, it's Austin. It's Austin and Portland. Because I spent so much time in Austin with South by Southwest and Flatstock. I have a dozen friends on. I've already had 3 people on this show who are from Austin.
Oh, wow. And they did the flat stock thing in the convention center as well.
It was
I remember
amazing.
going and seeing that.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was huge. And another guest that I had on, not sure. I'm still trying to figure out. I'm just recording episodes right now, and I'm trying to figure out the order of which things are going to be released. So I don't know if you'll be before him or after him or what.
Right.
My friend Jeff Pivido, he created the American Poster Institute so that there would be a legal entity to be able to deal with these festivals, and he's the one who got the flat stocks at South by Southwest, and then it's international now. They have them at festivals all over the world. It was an impressive feat. Let's put it that way.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, I wonder if there's any kind of protection with those posters as far as people taking them, using them, licensing them. I mean, is there anything that protects artists in that way?
It's hard because that's another thing that's been brought up a little bit from other people is like my friend Bobby has an episode on, and he was saying that someone texted him was like, hey, you need to watch that new Transformers movie when it came out. And he's like, why? And they're like, you just need to watch it. And then one of his posters was in that movie, and he's like, nobody said anything to me about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the stuff I shoot it's often used, funnily enough, illegally, even though it's obvious who owns it. It's
Right.
kind of crazy. I mean, I guess we don't need to talk about this, but I mean, I have had a friend walking through the Nashville airport go, "Oh, I love your ad for Merle Haggard on the wall. It's like a billboard." And I was like, what? I mean, I had no idea. This kind of stuff happens.
Oh,
it was a mistake, of course,
Yeah, it totally. It happens all the time. And, like I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and kind of in the back corner, the poster that's framed in that back corner, me and Christy were looking for houses. It was used as like dressing, like as as staging in some realtors.
Oh, no way.
And it's funny because it's like there's like a painting of like a flower meadow, and it's in a laundry room, so there's a washer and dryer, and then there's just like this death metal poster like just slapped on there. I was
my God. And is it one that you did?
It's one that I designed, yeah. The only movie, this is hilarious. The only movie that any of my posters has ever appeared in, and it was without my knowledge, was a porn movie. Somebody just sent me this link, and they're like, "Hey, look, they used all of your posters, all your metal posters for this porn shoot." And I was like, "Hey, finally!"
I mean, it's got to feel pretty good.
But yeah, I do that thing where when I'm watching movies or TV shows, anytime they show a teenager's room, I'm looking for my friends' posters on the wall. And I can't remember what we were watching. We were watching some TV show. not too long ago, and there was like some Woggles posters on the wall, and I was like, oh wow, that's cool. And the kid in the show isn't somebody who would ever listen to the Woggles. You know, it was like that character was like, man, that's not a kid who listened to the Woggles. And then we were watching.
Art director was probably somebody you worked for before,
right? And it's like we were watching Sopranos, and in the first season of The Sopranos, both of the kids have like all these posters from these like super obscure death metal and black metal bands that those kids would never listen to. And it's just like, yeah, it's like the art department person, like either they just scrambled to get something or they knew someone somewhere and asked and was like, hey, we need set dressing for teenagers' rooms. And it's like, teenagers listen to heavy metal. And they just threw them a bunch of posters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happens a lot. And that's, you know, and as far as legal protection, I don't know. I know poster artists that have had movies and TV shows contact them. Hey, we need posters from you, and we'll give you credit or cash or whatever. But generally, they just, you know, your shit once it's out into the world, especially in this day and age, in the dawn of the internet age and social media, you put anything on the internet, and you just got to assume someone's going to take it and use it, whether you want them to or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I was thinking about going into another whole thing where there was a photographer recently and had, who called her in like New York Times, I don't remember, some huge company, like I can't remember what it's called her and said, hey, can we use your photo? Maybe it was Mashable, I'm not sure. And she said no, because they offered her like $50. And so then they just posted it off Instagram. And she was like, wait a minute. But because I think it was a company that was partnered with Instagram. And so it was technically legal because she posted it. And she was trying, you know, so.
That doesn't seem like a fair way to get around the rules, does it?
No, I know. Why did they even ask her? If they wouldn't have said anything, she probably would have been flattered that they posted her photo.
Right. Yeah. That sucks. And I know for sure for photographers, it's even worse than art, because art is one of those things, like illustrative art, I guess I should say. It's pretty easy for someone to look at a piece of art and know who did it. And photographs fall into a different kind of thing, and every photographer has their own eye. There's no question about it. It is an art form like any other. But I think that the world looks at it in a different way. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's just a picture. Yeah. Whereas like a drawing is like, people can go, oh, it's a drawing. Somebody actually created that. And I think that sucks for photographers.
Right.
Totally.
Because anyone can take a photo, but not anyone can make a drawing like that.
But not anybody can take a photo.
I know.
You know, that means something. Like anybody can, you know, point a camera at something and take a picture, but a photograph is something totally different, isn't it?
I know. It's true. But I certainly couldn't doodle a picture like you do, not even close. And most people cannot.
Yeah, I guess there's something to that, but I mean, I get that sometimes where people are like, you just have this God-given, you're blessed with this talent. And I'm like, no. I've been drawing every single day since I was 3 years old. It was not given to me or blessed to me by anything or anyone. I decided I wanted to be good at it, and I spent my entire life trying to get good at it. And I don't know if I am any good at it. I think I'm okay, but yeah.
I was talking about that yesterday because my stepson is a singer, and he's been in the chamber singers. And when he first started, you know, he wasn't like Chris Martin from Coldplay or whoever, Tom Petty, who gets voice right out the gate and they don't even have to try. He tried, and yesterday he was singing this Elton John song, playing piano, and his voice had improved so much. And I was like, I just thought singers, I know that they can work on their voice, but his voice is 50% better than it was a few years ago. And it's a muscle. It's a thing. And if you work at it, you can actually improve it and get really, really good and sort of develop a voice that you want, which is what you do with your, I mean, I do feel like that as a photographer. I feel I look back at my work and it's embarrassing, you know?
Yeah. Welcome to the club,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Now when I look at my photos or I'm doing a shoot even, I when I approach a photo shoot, I used to approach it from a place of feeling nervous and oh my God, I hope this is good, and oh my God, I'm shooting Beck and I love him so much and he's so talented and cool, and that's how I kind of approach things. And now when I go shoot something, I'm like, of course it's going to be fucking good. Like, why wouldn't it be good? At
Right.
this point, it better be good. You know what I mean? You gotta just like own it at some point and say, this is going to be, I mean, and I think it's good whether other people like it or not. A lot of my shoots, I'm seeing them come up on the computer while I'm doing it. And I'm like, you know what? This is really cool. This looks great. I love it. Good for me.
One of my favorite one of my favorite ways of looking at my creative life in that same vein is at some point I decided that whether or not somebody else likes something or what somebody thinks about the things I create isn't really any of my business. My business is to make the things and put them out into the world. And then that's for everybody else to decide if they're good or not. And I'm kind of going through that with creating this show right now. And I'm like, I have those moments where I'm laying in bed. I'm like, does anybody want to listen to me talk about any of this shit at all? Like, and it's like, and then I get up the next day and I listen to the stuff I've recorded while I'm editing. And I'm like, I've got amazingly talented, cool and interesting friends and people in my life that, I think people will be extremely interested in what I've got going. And so, again, like you said, you just have to get to the point where you're like, of course it's going to be good. I have the evidence of the last 25 years of my life of making things, and people still paying me to do it. That's evidence that I'm actually probably pretty good at this,
Yeah. It's a pretty good feeling. It's just a good feeling to not feel afraid,
Yes.
like I've been in situations where I've been asked to bid on things a long time ago that I wanted really, really badly. And now that I look back on it, I think, I don't think I'm ready for that.
Oh yeah.
Now I feel ready. I wish the call would come back again because I've had some pretty amazing opportunities in the past that I didn't get. But, again, that being said, would I have screwed it up? No, it would have been great. I probably would have pulled it off. But emotionally, mentally, I feel much more confident, and it just happens with age, and it happens with sticking with something you love to do. And, now that time has gone by a little bit during the pandemic, you kind of feel, you want to keep shooting. And then I got asked to shoot something the other day and I went and did it. And I just snapped right back into that energy that happens when you're doing your thing. And I'm just like, oh, let's go over here. And there's this shot and this shot, and the shots just keep coming and coming and coming, and you just come up with all these creative ideas on the spot. And
I think they call that being a professional.
Yeah, you just click into it. And people get to follow you and go on your ride. And that's what feels fun, because it feels like you're in sort of this, how can I describe it? It's just a different realm of thinking. It's like you're not conscious, but you're conscious.
Totally. No, I totally get it. And that for me, I get that the most when I'm painting. Like I get into that weird like autopilot zone where like my brain, the muscle that I've conditioned for painting, just takes over what I'm doing, and I don't have to think about what I'm doing so much, because I've done it so much that my brain goes on that muscle memory, and so I can just worry about what I'm thinking about and not how I'm getting things done. And I think that's probably why of all the things that I do creatively, painting is the thing that I like the most, because it just takes me to a different place. And so, I actually get to paint a little bit this afternoon, so I'm pretty excited. I'm
nice.
working on a board game cover for this board game company that I work with, and so I'm getting to do like this cool painting for the cover, and it's like an old 60s like Wild West board game kind of thing. So it's like, it's an amazingly fun project. But to go back a little bit to what you were saying and that thing about not coming from a place of fear, because you've just, that is like a kind of a reoccurring theme with the show, is that, you know, there are people who wait around to be good until they feel good enough to start doing the things that they really want to do. And then there are other people who just start doing it and they just keep doing it. And I keep having people on that are in that same vein of like, I just wanted to do it, so I did. And I have other friends who are like amazingly talented, you know, artists, writers and stuff like that, who just won't show anybody anything because they just don't think they're good enough at it yet, or whatever. They're in that place of fear. And it's crushing to me as a person who like, I never was as good as a lot of other people, but I didn't ever care, and I just kept doing it. And I advanced my skill by putting myself in uncomfortable situations where I had to pull it off.
Well, that's when like right now doing my doc, which is supposedly going to be about me, and it is horrifying. I have got, like, you can see here in the table right behind me, there's a stack of tapes. I have probably 350 tapes, and I have been digitizing them and having to watch myself on camera and how I sounded and what I looked like. And I mean, there was moments, I hope my parents don't see this, which is another reason it's really hard to do the doc, is because the reason I could never do the initial doc I wanted to do was because I was pretty much in a blackout most of the time. So I have me interviewing people wasted. Just, yes. And I'm cutting them off while they're talking, and I'm being argumentative while I'm interviewing. I mean, it's tough. Talk about not wanting to. I understand people that don't think their art is enough to want to show anybody, but that's why this doc is going to be so just like a self-discovery journey of my past. But anybody I've talked to about it really likes the story. And if you have that much fear about something, it's the thing you need to go head first into 100%. You know, you have to face your fear. And that is what this, I'm going to force myself to do it, whether it comes out or not, you know, just because it's just something that I'm completely petrified of. So that means do it.
Right. That's amazing. That is totally amazing. And it's relevant to my experience at the moment, because I'm having to watch myself on video talking to people. And, you know, I've never done this before. I just decided to do it. And so it's super weird. And the thing that, that's been annoying me, is that I swear way too much. And I didn't realize how much I swear in my everyday life. And so just, it's fucking embarrassing. And look at that, I swear. It's totally embarrassing. And so I'm doing my best to try to curse less when I'm doing this, but then I'll have one of my heavy metal friends on and they're just like garbage mouth, and I just fall right back into it. And it's contextually, it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like who I'm talking to. And I need to also remember to be myself, because I am who I am.
Yeah, you gotta be yourself.
Extent. But yeah, it's like, so I can, man, I totally feel you on that. It's a weird thing. It is a weird thing.
Yeah. Hi. That's Will.
that's Piper's husband, Will. So you had mentioned a little bit ago that you and a friend did a nightclub. And I remember when I first met you, I think it was still going and maybe winding down. And so I knew that as much as I knew about your photography, I knew about that you ran this cool club in Hollywood. So what was that whole thing?
Okay, so it was my, I had a friend in San Francisco. We worked at Nordstrom together. And I had been living in Spain. I went back to San Francisco from LA to work a sale so that I could make some money. And there was this club that started in San Francisco called Pop Scene. And this was in about 94. And we walked in. It was Britpop, mod, 60s, indie. Everybody looked like they were in Supergrass / the Rolling Stones. And we were just like,
I love Supergrass.
We found our people. We found our people. And so I went back to LA, and then she moved down to LA, and she's like, we're starting a club like Pop Scene. Because we didn't know anyone really down in LA. I only knew some people that I worked with. I didn't know a ton of people that were into the same kind of music as we were. Everybody was kind of into this. It was like Swingers was really popular at the time, that movie. So it was like Reverend Horton Heat and Big Bad Voodoo Daddy.
Right.
And
that whole
that
weird
kind of
swing
stuff.
dance thing that happened in LA, like set LA on fire in the mid 90s with all of that swing dancing. And like, that was,
I mean, it was fun. I didn't dislike it, but I was just kind of like, I want to listen to Blur, Oasis, Elastica, Suede, Pulp, all that stuff. And then the Who, the Kinks, the Rolling Stones,
Sure.
the Beatles, into whatever indie bands from the US were coming out at that time too, Modest Mouse. So yeah, we started the club at this bar on Santa Monica Boulevard, and
what was the bar?
Initially it was called Checka.
Okay.
And it was right across the street from where that Trader Joe's was, next to the Formosa.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I remember that place.
Yeah, there was a Trader Joe's and like a Burrito King right there in this parking lot. So right across the street, I don't know. Oh, I know how we found that place. My roommate at the time was a bass player, and she played a gig there, and I went, and I thought, oh, it's a pretty cool place, Seems kind of low-key, which is where you want to start something to even have them offer the opportunity.
Right.
So they were like, yeah, sure, if you can bring people in here that are going to buy drinks, and they had food too. So we were able to make it 18 and over. And so we started doing that, and it was kind of hard to get started because we didn't know where our tribe was. So there was one show that came up at the Palace at the time, and my friend and I stuck flyers in our pants and our boots and our purses, and because you're not allowed to flyer for other events
Sure.
at an event, and it was like Lush, Mojave 3, Sheer, and we just like hit up every single person that was there. Cafe Blue, Thursday, Cafe Blue, Cafe Blue. And the next week there was like 250 people there.
Wow.
And it was awesome. And there was Vespas outside, and kids were coming from, I met someone the other day that said, oh, the guy that I photographed the other day was like, I would drive down from Fresno to go to Cafe Blue.
Oh, wow.
I mean, the kids would come from everywhere because there really wasn't anything like it. So that went on for about almost 5 years. And in that time period, we had been doing clubs with the guys that do Cherry, the guys that do
I remember Cherry too.
Shout, and the guys that do Cinematic. And then we started doing these called the Four of Clubs, where we would get about 5,000 people, where we would do the Variety Arts Center, and there would be the first floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor, and every floor was a different club that was popular in LA at the time. And that was how we were so successful, as opposed to being competitive with all the other clubs in town. We joined forces and helped each other promote. And, that's what community is all about in music. Like bands can, as opposed to being competitive with one another, there's an opportunity for community,
Sure. Yeah.
And it really all helped. And then we started Bang at the World on Hollywood and La Brea. We did that for 11 years every Saturday night, and that was literally...
That's the one that I associate with you, is the Club Bang.
Bang, yeah. That was like a big club, like 1,200 people. Good nights was 1,500 people. Bad nights was like 800 people. So it was pretty crazy. Yeah, that was really fun. And that was kind of like the stomping ground for young people when they first moved to LA. It's like, go to Bang, it's in the LA Weekly. Ooh, dancing. So, it was a lot of learning how to go to clubs went on there, which I loved about it.
That's great. That and I'm not. I generally am not the type of person who bemoans like, way back in my day, we used to do all this cool stuff, and now kids don't know nothing about that. I try to stay away from that kind of old think. But the bar and club thing in LA in the 90s, between probably 93 and I moved down here in 95, like beginning of 95. And between those times and like probably 2000, there were so many good bars and clubs and venues and places to play. And then now it's just like all that stuff just turned into like the gastro pub, and like it's just all like it's been so homogenized.
I know, it makes me so sad. There was this club that we did at Cafe Blue was going to do some, the club we did Cafe Blue at did a renovation. So we had to move to this place on Highland called The Probe for a while. And that had this license where you could go till 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, I think I remember going to that place. It was like the only like after hours place.
Yes.
I've totally been to that place at like 4 a.m. Totally.
Yeah, there was a lot of weird stuff that went on there, but it was such an amazing venue. I've been watching all these tapes of stuff that I filmed there, and those kinds of licenses will never ever exist again in Los Angeles. And that's, I don't know. I wish I would have known the building was going to be for sale, because I would have bought it. And you can, if it keeps going, you can hold that license.
Oh.
Same with Club Bang. That had a license that allowed it to be 18 and over. Now, there's no 18 and over places for kids to go.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, as a kid who was growing up in the punk rock scene, you were very lucky if you could find any place that you could go see shows. And that also served alcohol, so it just limited the amount of places you could go see stuff. And the way the laws have changed over the years, it's got to be next to impossible for teenagers to see shows anywhere anymore.
Yeah. We take our kids to the Fonda, though.
Yeah, the Fonda's great. It's some of the best shows I've ever been to in my entire life were at the Fonda, for sure.
Oh, nice.
For sure.
My brother works there. He's the sound guy.
Right. Wade, how is Wade?
Wade is good.
Say hi to Wade for me.
I will.
But yeah, like just as a personal, me and my friends used to when the Knitting Factory was on Hollywood Boulevard, that was like our spot. And we have a friend, Dan Dismal, shout out Dan Dismal, who booked all of the metal shows there. And so it was like every single weekend we were at there was like 3 venues or 4 venues, different venues inside of that place. And so depending on what band was there, you would be in a different room. And it was like every single weekend we'd take the subway from North Hollywood into Hollywood, walk over down Hollywood Boulevard to the club. We'd hang out there for a while. And then afterwards we'd bar hop down Hollywood Boulevard to all the other cool spots. And
Frolic Room.
Frolic Room is my all-time favorite bar on planet Earth. And I can't believe it's still there. It's the oldest bar left in Hollywood, I believe.
And Formosa's still around.
It closed for a minute, though. I'm glad they were able to get it back.
Okay.
But the one place that was every single place, Burgundy Room, all those places were all super fun places to go hang out. But the one place that was unique was the Powerhouse on Highland.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was like something out of a movie where you would have
like a Tarantino movie.
You would have a businessman sitting there chatting first name basis with like a street walking prostitute, and then in the next table you would have like one of the reenactors from Hollywood Boulevard, the guys who wear the costumes and get changed, like you'd have one of those people talking to some cowboy who is from Oklahoma, and everybody there was on a first name basis, and everybody was from a totally different world. And man, when they closed that place, that was like I said, like I don't get heartbroken about the advancements of this city too often, but that was a sting, man. There will never be a place like that ever again.
Powerhouse. It was on Highland where?
Right at Hollywood and Highland, on the opposite side from where they put the big mall in.
How did I miss that?
Because it was a tiny hole in the wall.
Okay. Kind of by Pig and Whistle.
No, it was on Highland itself. So if you were
Oh,
going
okay.
towards the 101, up
Yes.
towards the 101, and you passed Hollywood Boulevard on Highland, it was right on the right-hand side.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. I did. Okay. You
And
can
then one
edit
block
this.
over there was like a gas station, and Franklin's like right
Yes.
there. It was like
Yes,
right
yes, yes.
before Franklin. That place was awesome, and I don't know what'll go in there, but the amount of history and craziness in that place will never exist again. And
I just wonder what people do now.
they go to the gastro pub. They go to,
Right.
Wheat and Anchor or, Barley and Oats or whatever all these
Yeah.
places are called.
Yeah, I guess people do want to be inherently good now too, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, I just think things get branded so heavily, especially in this town. Things get branded, and because that's how you make money. It's hard to make money steering outside of the well-established trails in this town. In this town, if it's weird. It's like the weird thing. I love Los Angeles. It's my favorite place, and I know a lot of people don't agree with that. I love Los Angeles, and I love Hollywood, California, and it gets a bad rap a lot of the time for a lot of different reasons. But one of the things that's always been weird to me here is that for a place that creates so much original, it's a place of creation.
Yeah.
From music to movies to TV shows to commercials, like everything here is based around the creative arts and industries, and it doesn't like to do that a lot of times with things like the way the businesses are run. It's like, and that's frustrating because you get so many creative people in this town, and sometimes they're just not allowed to do that.
I think I think LA is such a good place to be creative because you can sort of create the environment that is conducive to your art form. You
Agreed.
know, like I've done shoots all over the world, and man, doing shoots in New York is awesome, but it's fucking hard. I'm like lugging my gear into a taxi cab, trying to get to some location that's a 5-story walk up, or things like that. It's you obviously get it dialed if you live there for a while, but in LA I felt so grateful to be able to have space to like house all my gear, and my car I can unload into my garage, and I can get in my car and drive around and location scout and bring my camera, or there's just a lot more space here for people to have the sanity to be able to think.
Right. It is a big city landmass wise, but is a very small industry, as we all know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is an entire city and surrounding cities that was what it was built to do. It was the wild,
Yeah.
wild west. And then within 10 years, it was where everybody came to make film, music, anything. And they just built, like literally inside of a decade, between like 1910 and 1920, it went from wild, wild west to movie studios.
Yeah.
And so it's weird here. It's a weird town. It still has the Wild West underbelly in there. If I have a friend who has done an episode, and he's from upstate New York, and we talked a little bit about how he's like, yeah, it's like got a weird aura, this town, that you don't get on the East Coast. It's got a wildness to it that you don't get on the East Coast. And I was like, yeah, I guess I could get that.
I've been talking to a lot of screenwriters and movie producers and lawyers right now because I'm starting to hopefully move into a development world of projects. And every time I talk to anybody, talk about the wild, wild west right now. You're like, how do I do this? How do I do that? Well, what's the right steps to take? And everyone's like, there's no specific plan in place to how things are supposed to be done anymore. You just however it works and however people are attracted to your project, that's what you do. Like no one really has a clue right now because there's so much content being developed for all the streaming services and everyone's trying to get skin in the game that it's the wild, wild west all over again with content, whatever that content is.
Right. Yeah.
There's just such a need for it, especially now. Everybody's at home.
Especially right now, which was like what prompted me kind of to start doing this is A, I had the time, and B, I was like, I've got a captive audience. If I have something even remotely interesting going on, I might be able to get some people to pay attention to it. And you're right. It is a weird thing between the music business and the TV and movie business and how streaming has changed everything. You don't need the same byways that you used to, where like you had to go to a movie studio and say, this is what I want to do. And they would go, yes, we say you can do it. Or no, we don't like what you're doing. Now you can just buy all the gear and do it yourself. You just do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And you don't need a record label. I have a friend on, do you know Joe Sib?
Yeah, I mean,
of course you do.
Did he had a show on Indie 103 for a while, right?
Yeah. Yes, he did. Me and Joe grew up together, and like at least 6 different people who've been guests are like, "Oh, you're having Joe on?" But me and Joe were talking about that because he was friends with Billie Eilish's family, and so he watched that whole thing happen, and he's like, "No record label required." It was completely organic, and you don't need it anymore. If you've got something that people want to hear or listen to or see, you can go ahead and make it, and you can do whatever you want. And for me, there's growing up in the punk rock scene and having that be the way we learned to just live our lives. That's fantastic. I love that. Where you're just like, I just want to make it, and you can find your own audience. You just make your own scene, so to speak.
Yeah, you don't have to feel like you have to wait to be validated in order for you to create something. I mean, and that's the hardest part too, is being self-motivated enough to do that. I kind of suffer from that a little bit because all of the jobs I do, I get hired to do. I'm asked to do. So then when it comes time for me to do stuff on my own, I'm like, okay, where's my motivation? How do I get inspired? Which is why this doc is such a good thing for me, and digitizing all these tapes and trying to figure out a story in mind. And I've written a lot of screenplays, and I've not finished any of them yet, that kind of thing, which I'm sure, but yeah, I mean, people like Billie Eilish and her brother who just, that's what musicians are good at. No one's going to call you and say, hey, can you write me an album? And,
right.
Unless you've already had tons of success. Music is something you have to be extremely self-motivated to get started in.
Yeah.
Photography is a little different because I started shooting some photos, and one day K-Rock saw some of my pictures and they said, hey, do you want to do all these photos, all our jocks? And they paid me my first professional job. I made really good money. So that wasn't that difficult, and I was just around them all the time with a camera, and they're like, you have a camera, you can take pictures. But my point is, it's being the self-motivated thing is really what separates the men from the boys. It's
absolutely
not easy to keep that going. As I'm sure being an artist, you have to, like, you're going to paint this afternoon, you have to have your lunch and go out into your studio and start the process and see what happens.
Yeah, totally. And that, I'm in a similar position to you, is like people hire me.
Yeah.
And so when the totally random, I can't find the right word, instance where I actually need to do something for myself, or something like doing all the graphic design work for this show. Like I have to decide what that's going to look like, and I've got no input. I am the final judge, and with everything else I do, somebody else is the final judge, and they'll tell me if they need it changed or whatever. And so it's been super crazy hard for me to commit to like an art direction for all of this, and because I'm just not used to that, to being in that position. So I can relate to that whole thing of like the motive. If there's no paycheck attached to it, it makes it even worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard. I feel kind of embarrassed admitting that, but
It's true.
I mean, it is
that's
what it
life.
is. It's just the way things have been for so long. And now you have to be more self-motivated because, doing what you do, everybody has a computer, and they're probably it's a lot easier for people to create,
It has
and
driven the rates in the graphic design and illustration business down into the cellar to the point where you have to make podcasts and, and
same
stuff.
here. And to be honest, there's all these young kids doing photography now, and I wanted to think that I had a step up, on them, but to be honest, they're really good. I look at these young people's websites and I'm like, how are they pulling this off? They just started, and the work it speaks for itself. It's really good.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing with like the t-shirt merchandise business. You'll get these kids who still live with their parents, or kids who are just starting out who will do work year 2 of their trying to do it just as good as anything I can do, and they'll work for half the price because they're just happy to get the gig. And so over the last like 15 years, it's driven the prices down to nothing. And I think a lot of young people, they build their portfolio doing inexpensive merchandise work for, all the bands that they've loved growing up, and it's super cool, and they can make a little money doing it. And then they figure out, like a lot of people, that it's hard to make a living doing it. You have to do so much work and the merchandise companies, they're a business. They're not going to pay a penny more than they have to. And so I don't blame them. That's their job.
Yeah.
Their job is to maximize profits for them and the artists that they represent. And so I get all that. It's just, I have to do 5 different jobs now to pay all my bills instead of like 1 or 2 that. So I'm like bouncing around here all day long. I paint the goalie masks. I design T-shirts. I design board games. I'm making this show. It's like I'm all over the place with stuff just to have enough projects in the mix to be able to make it make sense.
But young people have so much more time. Like, I have 3 stepsons. I have a husband. I just got a puppy. We have a home. I have a million friends I like to keep up with.
Sure.
I don't really care that much about gaining Instagram followers. I just, I don't want to spend all my days not like ignoring my kids and not going on. And I do spend time on social media, but it's not my most important priority,
Right.
and
Right.
young people, that is, they don't have kids. They probably live together and keep their costs down, and they have the time to spend shooting 10 times more stuff than we ever did. And it's so much easier to edit. Like, I was printing out proof sheets and mailing the proof sheets to people and waiting for them to get them, and then they would tell me which ones they wanted, and you'd have to scan them, and then
Right.
all the time that went into everything is just a split second now.
Right. And another thing with that is that their entire life has existed during the time of social media, so it's just how they live,
Yeah.
And I figured out,
and
I was lucky that I figured out pretty early in that if you're going to be in the creative industries on any level at all, you have to. I mean, maybe at some point you get to the point where some people get to the point where they're big enough, well-known, hired enough that that it's not a requirement. But I know for me, if I don't stay up on my social media, the amount of requests for work I get drops. And so it's just part of my life.
No, it's so true. It's so true. I mean, it is fun to post stuff too.
Sure.
And share your work with people. It is definitely fun.
The act of creation always has some kind of ego attached to it, and you want people to see what you do, and you want people to think that the things you do are cool. No, and any artist or creative person who tries to deny that, I'm calling bullshit on that. You wouldn't put it out there if you didn't want anybody to like it. So. Yeah.
I mean, but then on social media is fun, but then I get the FOMO thing, like, oh, so-and-so's shooting that, and I want to do that. And then, oh, so-and-so's in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
What?
That professional jealousy.
I need a desert I need an island vacation.
Right. You get that. You totally get the professional jealousy, and it's like, I always just try to turn that into motivation for me to do something, because it's easy, to look at and be like, why don't I get that job? Like that person's no better than I. And it's like, you know, my dad had a quote, like a saying when I was a kid is that, you know, you can't spend somebody else's money for them. And that's kind of the way I look at it is it's like, you know, you just got to be happy that somebody's getting hired because that means people are hiring people and you're just going to be one of them at some point, you know?
Yeah, I finally have, I will say, gotten to the place where I am able to look at other people's work and just totally appreciate it and not, you know, feel envious.
Yeah, no, I get it. I do too. I'm at that point too. You know, I'm just grateful that I can keep doing what I do professionally, and you know, it's not something that everybody can do, and it's not something everybody has the drive to do. And so I'm grateful, you know, that I came up at the time that I did, and in the music scene I did, and it was ingrained in me that that's how it works, is you just do it because you want to get it done. And it was awesome talking to you and hearing that you came from that same place, and that your mind and your desire is in that same place. And that's awesome, because me and you are friends, but I don't know that we've ever sat down and had a conversation like this before. And so, yeah, this has been super great, Piper.
Yeah,
this has been amazing.
Totally cool. Yeah. Are we good?
I think we got.
There was one thing I was just about to say. You're going to edit this,
feel
right?
free. Yeah, no, I mean, it depends. If it.
Okay.
Say what you got to say.
Hi. Oh man, what was I going to say? It was something. Oh, yeah, I was going to say something more along the lines of you being an artist allows you to be an artist in every aspect of whatever's happening in your life. Like right now, you're kind of like, oh, all these young folks are able to do whatever graphic design jobs you used to do. And so as an artist, you're able to evolve your energy, your career, your focus into something different, like doing a podcast or doing a game cover or painting the hockey masks, or, you know, because you're constantly trying to level up, change, evolve. You know, and that's what I'm trying to do too. I'm doing the doc. I want to put out some books. I'm writing scripts. I'm still doing photography and loving it, thinking of new ways to do photography. So as an artist, I think that's what keeps us in the game, is that, you know, we don't just stop and say, this is getting hard. You know, do you know Esteban Oriol, that photographer?
I'm familiar with the name.
He photographs like Venice, LA gangs from the 80s.
Yeah.
You know, he was one of the first photographers that I heard say, you know, if photographers don't all band together and decide how much we're going to charge, it's just ruining our industry by people taking whatever job they can get for and doing it for whatever cost. But I just went to one of his art shows, and I mean, he's just created himself into this brand. I mean, he's putting out books, he's selling his prints. Netflix just did a show on him. I mean, that
was the one with Mr. Cartoon, right?
The show?
The Netflix thing was the one, was that with Mr. Cartoon? The artist?
That I do not know.
Like LA Originals, is that what it was? LA?
I don't know. I think
it is. I think it's the same thing.
Yeah. But my
cool.
point is, he's evolved himself because he pushed into, okay, now I have to continue being an artist, but also continue putting food on the table for me and my family. So how can I make those two worlds in harmony and not feel like I'm selling out? He's still him. Still him. He's just had to, like, again, level up into a new sort of way, and he branded himself, and it's really impressive. I think that's what needs to happen for everybody that's been going as long as we have.
Yeah, I think to speak to that, absolutely. What happened with me specifically in that regard was, at some point I had to decide if I was going to try to brand myself and become like a Kozik or like a Warhol or any of those other like, big name, Robert Williams, any of those people who became their own brand. I kind of decided that the short-term money and then that would turn into the long-term money was that I was better being a jack of all trades. Like you can hire me and I can solve your problem. Whether you need a t-shirt for Carrie Underwood for big arena country shows, or if you need a skull and a bloody eyeballs t-shirt designed for your death metal band, like my name became less important than working a lot and being able to be a problem solver that could. And so that's, I think, why I have so many different areas of creative stuff going on all the time. Is you
can be diverse in any department.
I became
in any
that
genre,
and as it pertains to me and yours friendship and working relationship, is that ended up working out because you hired me for that shoe thing. Yeah. And it was like I was able to use my tagging skills that I developed over the years. Yeah. I was able to use my airbrush skills and my painting skills and all of these set design skills. And I was able to build this kind of like graffiti piece. And then after all of that, I was able to take my Photoshop skills and then comp it into your photograph. It was like, so I think that's a good illustration of how I started treating my my career. Was I was like, I just want to be the problem solver guy. Like you come to me when you need a bunch of different stuff figured out, and it's worked really well for me. I mean, nobody knows who my name is, but at the same time, I stay busy all the time and I do cool and interesting creative stuff. And one day it may be this one thing, and then the next day I may be doing like that advertising thing that I was doing for you, and like I have to run out and buy a big 4x8 sheet of plywood, and I have to I have to paint it, graffiti all over it, do all this cool stuff, and then the next day I might be working on a card game or a board game. And I think in the end, I'm way happier doing this than I would have if I'd like, come up with, like, and not to shout any names out against anybody in a negative way, but like if I decided to do like become like Shag, and I have to paint that same thing all the time, I would not have been able to make that work. So I think I made the right choice.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait to do something with you again.
And Shag is amazing, and I love Shag's work. And I've met that guy, and he's super, super nice. And I don't want anybody to think I said anything negative about him.
We could name a lot of people like that.
It was I was making an example. Yeah. But yes, the project we worked on together was super fun. It was, I really like that. Can I post that to my portfolio? Is it come out?
It's not come out yet. I think the brand is like, this is really different. This doesn't look like anything we've ever done before. We have to decide how we're going to start doing this.
It's for a shoe company, and it's
company.
Yeah, it is much more contemporary.
It's not so lifestyle, earthy, organic, which is how they usually model their brand, their shoe, but
it's a lot more like Instagram social media style. It's definitely a little more slick and stylized, and I loved it. It turned out great. I was happy with it.
That's kind of why I love my job, is because it's not all about taking the photos. I love every aspect of being a photographer and a director, and one of my favorite parts about the job is having the conversation with whoever it is I'm going to be shooting and pulling out of them whatever it is they want people to feel while they're looking at their imagery, whether it's a video or a photo shoot. And that's pretty much what our job is making people feel something, or not making people feel something, but hopefully invoking some emotion from somebody who sees the imagery of an artist that they want to, that artist is hoping becomes familiar with their work, and not just familiar with it, but enjoys it, so.
Sure.
And there's so much imagery out there, you really sort of have to push yourself in some way to, but however you do something, it's kind of like what you said, whether it's Carrie Underwood or skulls and metal. You know, you kind of have to go in the vein of whoever it is you're working for. But yeah, I love pulling all the boards together and location scouting, styling, makeup. I get to be involved in every part of it. And then again, just sort of hoping that when people look at it and listen to it, they feel something, like when I listened to Generation X, to bring it full circle.
There you go.
How I
Look
felt
at
back
you
then.
go.
I was like, I'm like, this is how I want to feel all the time.
Right. That's amazing. And I think that is a perfect place for us to jump off. And Piper, this has been fantastic. I appreciate your time, and you're welcome to come on and talk to me anytime you have something cool or interesting or new that you want to talk about. Like when any of your doc stuff is finished or any of that, like, please let me know. And I would love to have you come back on and chat.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. That was fun. I feel so much better. I was a little nervous.
That's good. You know what? That is one of the things that I've been hearing from people when we're finishing up, is people like, wow, that was like super fun. Like I felt like I was just shooting the shit with my friend, and it wasn't like I was on some weird show. And so I guess that's how I know I'm doing something right.
Yeah, no, congrats. This is great.
Thank you.
Really quick